beneficial for all of us. We are very grateful to be a part of the success of this innovative organization. I would like to introduce Clay McCarty and David Williams. Please join me in welcoming Clay and David to tell us more about McCarty Family Farms.
Yep, I'm live. First of all, thanks to everybody for coming and for QLF for inviting us here for this. I guess I'll just start in our presentation. A lot of it just talks kind of about our family's journey from Pennsylvania to where we are today. It's been exciting, frustrating, and challenging all at once. That's actually a picture of my parents. I have 3 brothers that are not here today, and there's actually a few more kids added to that picture, but our wives are in that as well. Yep.
When the McCarty family moved from the hill country of Pennsylvania to the flat plains of western Kansas in 1999,
I'm no help.
when the McCarty family moved from the hill country of Pennsylvania to the flat plains of western Kansas in 1999, they began with just 200 head. The business has grown to support the entire McCarty family and their surrounding communities, with its 3 dairy locations and an on-site processing plant.
We started this process of looking at Kansas and relocation in the mid-90s. We're very fortunate as a family, or my brothers and I are, that my father had enough foresight to see the industry trends and opportunity for us as a family.
We moved out here wanting to work together, and we always said there'd be a right time to do it, and fortunately the time's come, so we can do it now, which is nice.
A tradition since 1914, the McCarty family is still working together on the family dairy. The 4 brothers, Mike, Ken, David, and Clay, now run the day-to-day operation of the dairy. Their parents, Tom and Judy, are always nearby, ready to lend a hand or some advice.
We've been very, very fortunate with both my mom and dad. You know, we learned a lot about the dairy business, I think, about how to work and, you know, the ability to have a dream and always be motivated for more from my dad. When it came to moving out here, the thing I've given them the most credit for is they've allowed us to kind of say, hey, this is our vision of how we want this business to grow, and have always been extremely supportive about if we wanted to expand, if we wanted to enter into a whole new type of business relationship like we just did here recently. But also, hey, Dad, they've allowed us to make mistakes and never really criticized us for those. I mean, you get the I told you so once in a while from Dad, or I told you that wouldn't work. But they've always been supportive of what we've tried to do.
Family is important to the McCartys, but it doesn't stop with the 4 brothers. The McCartys family has grown to include employees on the 3 dairies and in the processing plant, and their families too. All of these employees live and go to school in rural western Kansas, the same communities that McCarty Family Farms call home.
We are a family farm. We're a large family farm, but we've got a lot of extended families here working with us. We feel growth is necessary to continue to provide them more upward movement. We take a lot of pride in seeing guys and girls grow up with us, take on more responsibility, and allow us to do more. So if we expand, they get more opportunity, They can improve their quality of life, hopefully, and we all win.
The McCartys know it takes a lot more than 4 brothers to run a dairy of this size, and it's their job to set the example for both their employees and their community.
That was something that I think my dad was very good at in Pennsylvania, and he always tried to teach us boys that, hey, you know, he had a lot of sayings for, if the hired man was a foot deep in it, you best be 3 feet deep in it. And a lot of those mentalities we brought with us here. And if you talk to the guys that have been with us, we've got lots of guys that have been with us 4 or 5 years, and we have quite a few guys that have been with us 10, 11, 12 years.
It's great. I mean, it's new and exciting stuff every day. I mean, from the employee aspect to the cow aspect, I love cows, so get to do what I love every day. It's a dream.
If you ask our employees, they're part of the family. You know, that's how they feel.
My family is very happy with this. My wife, my kids. I know Mike's family, I know Mike's wife, Mike's sons, Mike's father. So I know everybody. That's why I feel like in my family too.
The McCartys take this inclusive approach to work seriously when bringing new employees into the family on the dairies or in the processing plant.
When we look for the type of coworker we want, we're looking for attitude, character. When they're here at 2 o'clock in the morning when we're milking cows, which this dairy runs 24 hours a day, are they responsible enough to make the right decision? Are they responsible enough to care about that animal like I would care about it? That's what we're looking for, care, try, and want.
Well, I think that says a lot of what I'm going to say, but if you do want to heckle my dad, he is hiding in the back somewhere. So I'll give you a brief history of our family. It'd be my great-great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather. Started milking cows in 1914, obviously. My grandfather took over the original farm, which we do still own today. My dad was actually just back there for a little while. We tend to have a little flooding problem back there, so. My mom and dad were both actually school teachers, and Dad was basically farming, I guess you could say, on the side and trying to buy out my grandfather. And in 1970, they started what you see here is what we call Elm Glade Farms. In our heyday back there, I think, Dad, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had over 100 fields we farmed, and I think the average, what was it, 5-7 acres. So, you know, it was definitely a different world than what we live in today. We started the thought process, my parents did, about relocation. And at that time, I think we were milking in 3 facilities, maybe 200 and maybe 300 cows tops, all tie stall facilities. And Dad said, hey, if you guys all want to come back and do this, we've got to do something different. So that kind of started the journey of looking. We looked New York, Texas, Nebraska, and then when we kind of spent most of our time in the Kansas area, southwest Kansas primarily, and fortunately we ended up finding a bank that would work with us, found a farmer that would work with us, and we settled in Rexford, Kansas in 2000. Started small, 1 freestall barn, 800 head capacity. I think it took us close to 6 months to get full. Plans were to eventually milk 3,200 cows at that site. That's still not happened, and probably never will happen. So we just kind of picked away. We added some open lots, got up to about 1,500 cows, and then we were actually approached by the town of Bird City. They were, I think, and you have to understand Northwest Kansas. It's very small, schools, you know, and I think it's a familiar subject, school consolidation everywhere. So, you know, we had a really positive impact in the Rexford area just because we brought so many families and jobs. And Bird City wanted to replicate that. So they basically, in a sense, gave us the seed money, a loan, that we could use as collateral to build the Bird City facility. So in 2008, we opened that, got us up to milking a little over 3,000 cows with 2 facilities. 2009, we finally were at the point we could raise our own heifers, so we built a heifer facility at the Rexford location. And the big game changer in our business was in 2010. We started work on the Dannon relationship, which has led to a lot of what you'll see. 2011, once we had formed a relationship and a contractual agreement with Dannon, we built a processing facility, evaporative condenser, which we had no idea how to run. We were smart enough to hire people smarter than us. We acquired another dairy in Scott City. So we got up to, probably milking about 6,000, right around there. We expanded 2 of our other facilities. Started shipping milk in 2012 to Dannon, and that was a adventure because obviously we had no idea what we were doing. And I can remember being so excited because we had to give them a start date. And April Fool's is like the worst day in our family's history, but we seem to always open a dairy or do something on April Fool's. Well, that was when our first load of milk was supposed to deliver to the Fort Worth plant in Dallas. Well, we started that evaporator up and it just went, we wrecked the bus, so to speak. Fortunately, Dannon was patient. Like I said earlier, we had some really smart people that helped us figure out how to make it run. Started out with basically a one-time capacity. We felt we would maybe be able to do 500,000 pounds of raw milk. Right now, yesterday we were doing 683,000 pounds a day. So I think that's a testament to the people that build it, but also the people that run it for us. As we finally figured out how to be more efficient in the processing side, we added the Beaver City facility in 2014, which at that point it made sense. Dannon needed the demand, and our heifer program was working. We're really aggressive sex semen users, so we needed to expand. And that's basically triggered our next expansion. We've got a partnership with a like-minded family in Ohio, and we've begun construction there in 2017. Hopefully, we hope to be operational by, I'd like to say, the 10th of November. Be about a 4,200 cow facility, and that'll be, I think, our last dairy expansion for a while. One of the big things that Dannon asked us to do was become a non-GMO supplier. That was a definite challenge. I've got our non-GMO manager here, so he can answer those questions in a little while. It was a big change for us, just because I think we all have gotten used to technology in a sense. And Dannon came to us actually 2 weeks before we were going to plant corn and said, hey, we want you to do this. So we are not big farmers, so it took a lot of cooperation from our suppliers to make the transition. I'm glad we did. It's definitely been a challenge, but it's been a way for us, I think, to solidify our relationship with Dannon. And as we've gotten more and more into it, I think it's been a very positive thing for our company. And then we also, we're big believers in third-party audits. In 2017, we became the only dairy in the world that has completed all 4 of the Validus audits. From worker care, obviously the animal welfare, and 2 others. I guess I keep hitting. There we go. Those were the reasons, basically, that we looked to relocate, cheaper feed, better milk price. Actually, at the time that we looked to move, and Dad might get these numbers a little closer than me, but I believe we were basically same milk prices we were in Pennsylvania, about $1 a hundredweight cheaper on feed. Of course, we moved and they redid the federal milk marketing orders like literally when we opened, so that all went away quickly. But lower population, less regulation, and more opportunity. The challenges, obviously, I think it's the ultimate challenge for everybody. Finances. I mean, it's still tough. Labor has become a bigger and bigger challenge for us. I think everybody that milks cows or has employees knows how difficult that's become. Obviously a much different climate than what we were used to. There's a lot of wind periodically in Kansas. This was a tough one, how to establish relationships. Our family had been there for 100 years. Everybody knew who we were. It bought you a lot of forgiveness. It bought you a lot of favors. You know, we had to recreate that. And that's something I think I take a lot of pride in. We use a lot of the same suppliers that we started with in 2000, we still work with today. And learning who to trust. And I can say this honestly, Northwest Kansas was extremely friendly to our family. Current locations, this is where we have the condensing plant. That's more or less the farm that I manage, so to speak, our heifer yard, 2 freestall barns. We still milk out of our open lots. We have our drop yard for all the trailers, and my parents are slowly getting squeezed down to a smaller and smaller yard. This would be the facility where we own the most amount of crop ground. We still rely heavily on outside suppliers. You know, the same guys that we bought silage from in 2000, we're buying silage from today. We're in the process actually to converting our heifer yard over. This facility's really changed. We've become more of a calving facility for other dairies, and we started to raise some non-GMO beef. Basic breakdown of production. It's pretty accurate. Bird City Dairy, that was our second dairy, 2,700 cows, small amount of crop ground, extremely high production dairy. This, I think, is a testament to, one, we've never expanded within the footprint, and we've never messed with the cow herd. You know, that place has raised its heifers from day one, been very consistent, worked with the same semen company from day one, and the place just rocks milk. Because we, as facilities go, I mean, there's no fans, there's not a lot of high-tech stuff. We acquired this farm, Scott City. This is our only rotary facility. It's definitely changed our mindset, and that's part of the reason we're all excited for the MVP facility to come online in Ohio. The efficiencies that we've gained by being able to milk on a rotary versus the parallels that we have in our other facilities, it's night and day. It's opened up a totally different labor force for us, and it's just for us, it's the way of the future. Beaver City, the prior dairy, Scott City and Beaver City Dairy, were both at one time very distressed dairies. This one actually sat empty for 2 years before it opened up, and then was only milking about 500 cows or so when we took it over. We're milking 1,450 there. Again, no crop ground. Totally different facility. All of our other farms, we flush and irrigate. This is really more or less a scrape dairy, so that's been a challenge for us. I think David and Renee's in the back would attest that they would prefer to flush that facility. Good production level. That was probably it's been the last dairy we opened, but it's probably been the toughest one. It's just 80 miles outside, but it feels like it's 800 miles away, and I don't really know why. This is a proposed operation, well, actually under construction. It's quite a place. Talking about a digester down the road, we're in negotiations. We're trying to do something pretty innovative outside of the actual footprint. 80-stall De La Valle rotary out front, and I think the one thing that's going to set this place apart is, one, it's a very non-traditional dairy facility. Two, it's pretty large for that part of the world, but we've really put a lot of money into the visitor center out front. You know, really want it to be more of a educational center for a lot of, we were amazed. We had, and I wasn't there, but my brother was there 3 weeks ago, I believe, on a Sunday, and there was well, Michaela would know, she's back there. They had I think it was a water conservation tour came through. And they said, oh, you guys probably ought to be back here. Yeah, okay, maybe, you know. Our manager's there, and we had a lot going on, just couldn't make it, but my one brother did. And they put 3,000 to 5,000 people through there. So it was like, oh boy, we better get serious about giving tours back here. That was an eye-opening experience. People are very curious about this facility. Yeah, so expected daily volume of 300,000 pounds of non-GMO milk will come out of that facility in Ohio. The location was primarily chosen because, again, it's part of our Dannon, it will be part of our Dannon contract, but we're only about 19 miles from their yogurt facility. So we have a tremendous freight advantage. We were a little shocked that how much concrete we've had to pour. It's amazing, actually. We've got storage for over 100,000 tons of feed on site, all concrete. We're going to have an enclosed feed center. The manure management system was designed basically, the goal is to eliminate odor, 100%. Will we be successful? I don't know. I mean, I know there's been a lot of pressure. We met some pretty heavy resistance early on. Had a rather large group of people that did not want us there. I think over time, it's ultimately the body of work will be what sets the record straight. But, I mean, that forced us to think differently about facility design. So we basically have, in a sense, it's a tunnel vent. We actually, K-State helped design it for us, but we used a concept from a farm in Australia. So we've got 400 fans on the back end of this place, basically, and down through it that we're basically going to pull all the air out the back. And we're basically trying to direct the odor away from homes out through our lagoon area. We anticipate 35 new employees. That'll actually bring us between the Kansas operations, the condensing plant, and the Ohio operations will be up over 200 total employees. So that's been a big change and transition for us. I'm lying about our startup date because they've been lying to me for 60 days about it, so I'll just continue to lie. As you can see, we've got translucent panels on the side, so it's totally enclosed. It's actually what they call an inverted 6-row. So we will be feeding on the outside of the facility, and our feed tractors will never leave the buildings. They can basically pull out of one freestall, whip into the other freestall, and go down through and feed. So our pens are actually head-to-head in the middle. So the only thing separating them is just the freestall beds are head-to-head. So there's just the rail down through there. So it's kind of an interesting story. The guy that owns the dairy in Australia was just actually on a tour through western Kansas and stopped, and I said, hey, I want to show you a picture of something. I said, does that look familiar? Oh my God, that's our place. I said, yeah, thanks for the design help. He was a little shocked. I think we have another video.
Cow care is of utmost importance to the McCarty family. As the dairy grows, it becomes more important to manage herd health by putting processes in place for employees to follow. Animal welfare, nutrition, cow comfort, and cleanliness are all important to the McCarty family and to every one of their employees.
Coming from the small dairy mentality of a handful of cows, or, you know, you always had that 1 or 2 cows, and now that's a little bit harder to have that. But, you know, there's still cattle on this dairy that guys just treat with super caution and care. And I mean, we expect our guys with an animal welfare contract. We have zero tolerance for any cruelty, any abuse, any perceived abuse. And I can assure you that we're pretty demanding on how guys are going to take care of cattle.
We're about the protocol. That's why I'm checking the cameras every day. I'm trying to see how they work. I'm pull somebody and talk, you know. I'm tape it and show the video and say, I don't want this.
Calm and content cows on the McCarty farms produce more milk, but they also make the farm a safer and better place to work.
Well, the bottom line is calm cows produce more milk. If you've got hyper-excited cows, they're going to be nervous all the time. They're going to be running. They're going to be a danger to themselves and to the employees. So every employee that comes in as new hire training, they go through proper animal handling techniques. You know, don't yell at cows. You don't hurt cows. You treat cows with love and kindness. Every cow here is a mother. You need to treat cows like you treat your mother. I don't yell and scream and push my mother. I mean, that wouldn't fly. So that also doesn't fly with the cows. And the cows truly do pay the bills around here. So if the cows aren't happy making milk, then our employees aren't going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy. Nobody will be happy.
Cow care is paramount to the McCarty family. They inspect each cow every day and ensure that all of the cattle have plenty of access to nutritious foods and clean water.
The clanging you hear behind us are the head gates for the cows. Each morning we deliver fresh feed to the cows. The cattle come through when they eat. We catch these in the head gates, and that allows us to do a quick physical exam on the animals to ensure their health, make sure everything's fine, and then we quickly release them to let them go back, lay in the sand bedding, drink water, roam freely within the pen to do what they want.
The nutrition to a cow is a very important part of her milk production and her health. If we don't feed cows correctly, feed them too much of the wrong ingredients, you don't get the milk at the optimum level you should as cows need.
And I always relate it to, for example, your parents make sure you eat the right things. The people in the cafeteria do. Well, we have a nutritionist to make sure our cows eat the right things.
We have a nutritionist. He comes in here monthly, checks, examines our feed, and makes sure everything's healthy for the cows. In this ration, we feed a lot of corn silage, alfalfa hay, cottonseed, canola meal, flake corn, corn hominy, a molasses mix for some sugar source, and then they have a mineral package that is also mixed in.
In addition to proper nutrition, cow comfort and cleanliness are important to keep the cows content and producing more milk. Clean and comfortable cows also help the McCarty family deliver a better product to the consumer.
Cow comfort, happy cows is extremely important. Cow comfort, low stress levels, allows the cows to produce more milk.
The most important part of cow cleanliness is the main concern is making sure the udder and the teats are clean. That goes back to cleaning the beds properly. If a cow has a wet bed, she's going to be dirty. We go through, we rebed the stand stalls, make sure they're clean, groomed, dry, everything's perfect and pristine. So that way when our cows do come to the parlor, they're as clean as they can be before our milkers even touch them.
We make the beds for these cows 3 times a day. We come through, we groom, we fluff, we aerate those beds so the cows have a nice soft bed to lay in.
From a stall barn like we had to what we have today, the cattle can move, well, they go to work for like an hour, 3 times a day. They go back to a perfectly manicured diet. They have a manicured sand bed to lay on, access to water. Anytime they want to lay down, they can lay down. They can get up, have a drink, but they go to work 3 times a day. They have a good deal. That good deal is beneficial to the consumer.
So one thing that I think that we've really, as we've grown and our businesses, our models changed, so to speak. You hear those guys talk a lot about systems and protocols and training. That's become beyond a critical part of what we do. Also, we're really driven by data, more so than I ever thought I would enjoy. But it's been a good lesson, I think, for us as owners, but also for the guys that work with us, as we can watch the needle move and watch the problems move. And by understanding the efficiency and the data on our farms, it's really just changed. We were so more consistent than I ever thought we could be. Here are some basic KPIs. David Williams, who's here with me today, he tracks all of our data for us. We have monthly farm performance meetings where we get all of our managers and key people together, and we review all farm KPIs. Sometimes it's good. If you're the dairy that's having the massive RP problem, it's not so good. But it's a good time to share ideas and to brainstorm, and I think it's been very well accepted amongst our management team. 56.5 pounds of dry matter, feed efficiency about 1.52, 105 pounds of dry matter. Somatic cell count, that's a pretty accurate number across our farm, about 130,000. We'll see some seasonality. I can tell our management has gotten better because we used to see the 300 mark 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and now the alarm's going off at about 175 for us. LPCs, SPCs, because all of our milk goes into a condensing facility, milk quality is taken to an extremely high level. Not that it wasn't before, but there's very much more of we're condensing it, so the problems just get bigger. So we got to minimize everything in the front end. We actually have a person dedicated in our facility that's basically our milk quality manager. She's tracking LPCs, SPCs. We have an on-site lab now. What handles all of our blood or pregnancy tests. Also, it's a culture lab for us, and she does all the testing on the condensed side as well. Environmental impact, we monitor water use, energy use, and soil health. These are components are a big deal for us. Our components are never as good as we want them. Our goal is to be over 6 pounds of components all the time, and you can see we're not there. Bird City is, even at a poor component level, just because of the flow. Mastitis Mun, this is a basic breakdown of where we were at. I don't know when this was. Yeah, it's just older data, but this was 2017 stuff. When you talk about the actual cow indicators, we're tracking this weekly. And it's a lot more in depth than this actually, but we couldn't fit it all in one slide. So, but we're looking at DOAs, lactation 1s, ketosis, metritis. Hey, we're testing every cow for ketosis now, which I never thought we'd do, but we do now. Mastitis is, you know, we've taken our toolbox of drugs, I guess you could say, and we've just really emptied it out. I mean, there's only 3 or 4 drugs that really get used on our farm. One, it's to limit antibiotic usage, period. But also, the risk of a residue violation scares us. You know, I mean, it's something, whether it's on the beef quality side or on the milk side. You know, if we want to get crossways with Dannon real quick, that's how we'll do it. Yeah, that was Rexford's. One number I think everybody looks at is the number of cows leaving, less than 30 days in milk. And it's really interesting now that we've basically consolidated to one freshening facility. It's amazing what you see as far as performance across the other farms. More feed indicators. David Williams also tracks this. So all of our areas on our farm, we've tried to incentivize them, whether it be, you know, our parlor is obviously incentivized through somatic cell. Our feed crews incentivized through shrink, accuracy, deviation. Our breeders are all incentivized on number of pregnancies. All of our hospital maternity guys are incentivized on, you know, whether it's DOAs or dead cows or trims, lames. And it's been a very, one, I think it's a good way to get buy-in from your guys, but it also shows them that, hey, I do believe in you through the training and all the stuff I'm doing. Even though I'm taking this away from you, hey, I'll give it back to you over here. You just got to follow the protocol. So we've become very much a protocol-driven dairy, which I really struggled with because we grew up just kind of treating cows and doing things the way we always did. And, you know, as you go from 100 cows to soon to be 12,000 milking cows, it's just not that simple. So that's been a huge adjustment for us. Oh, another one? Yep, go ahead.
$1,200 Holsteins receive their morning milking at McCarty Farms in Rexford, Kansas. Their milk is high in volume and butterfat compared to other Holsteins in the dairy industry, and the path their milk will take to the customer is unusual.
We desired a greater connection to the consumer, a greater connection to the people who bought our milk, and a greater valorization of what we felt were our best practices, in the hopes that in doing that, it would create a better economic model.
The evolution of the model originally began when the McCarty family moved in 2000 from Pennsylvania to western Kansas in search of lower feed costs. Yet a decade of low dairy prices kept profits at the family business thin. The pursuit of a different business model led the McCartys to Dannon, the largest yogurt maker in the United States. The McCartys were looking to stabilize a volatile bottom line. Dannon was seeking price stability for its products and had specific needs for its raw milk.
We envision a food system that is a little different than it is today, in the sense that we want to be working with Mother Nature and with the dairy farmers to change how food is made, because that's what shoppers are increasingly looking for.
Changing consumer preferences are driving food producers to design supply chains that allow traceability of their products right down to the farm. Several companies, Dannon among them, have found consumers that are interested in traceability are willing to pay a premium for the privilege.
And more recently, we've just introduced our first non-GMO Project verified yogurts, which are verified to the feed of the cows.
80% of the dairy's forage is purchased from the region. The 8,200 milking cows that McCarty Farms milk at operations in Kansas and Nebraska have been on an entirely non-GMO feed regimen since June of 2017. The process of creating a non-GMO feed supply took 18 months and required the McCartys to convince local farmers to change their seed preferences. For the McCartys, the increased costs and record keeping were worth the extra work.
Very warm reception with those farmer partners, and obviously we had to harvest the forages, which takes some time, and then we had to build the entire system of traceability and protocols and whatnot to comply with the standard.
The partnership between Dannon and the McCartys is more than just vendor-client. The bulk milk price the two sides negotiate is based on an open books philosophy. The McCartys open their books and share their costs of production with Dannon in order to earn what both believe to be a fair price. Profitability for both buyer and seller is maintained. Each side believes this open policy is better for both sides of the equation.
Over time, Americans have been looking differently at the foods that they're eating and wanting to know more about where they come from, how they're produced. And no surprise, interest in non-GMO options is growing. And so we, through direct relationships with farms, are now able to provide a non-GMO project verified option in non-organic yogurt that previously was not available. And the only reason we're able to do that is because of the direct relationships we have with dairy farmers and the ability to work with them over a longer term period so that they can plan accordingly for their feed inputs to ensure that they too are non-GMO project verified.
The relationship between Dannon and McCarty Farms also carries environmental and animal welfare expectations. Border areas of the farms are now planted in native grasses to reduce mowing and encourage wildlife. Chemical use on forage ground is limited. Crop rotations are required. The dairy cows have access to feed and shade and are closely monitored for signs of health issues or a change in milk output. The focus on animal welfare has led McCarty Farms to become the first dairy in the nation to earn all 4 Validus certifications, a third-party verification of socially responsible on-farm production practices. Dannon has committed to sourcing milk exclusively from Validus certified dairies.
Animal welfare is something we as a company are very passionate about, the health and well-being of dairy cows. It's also something that consumers are increasingly interested in. And so we believe Validus is the gold standard in the United States. And it's a process that we're so committed to that we put it into the agreements with our dairy suppliers. And it's part of the cost equation that we are also bearing because it's that important to us.
Milk production from McCarty Farms' 4 dairies is trucked to the Rexford, Kansas facility to be condensed before shipment to Dannon Plant number 48 in Dallas, Texas. By evaporating 75% of the water in the bulk milk, Dannon reduces the carbon footprint of its yogurt. The reclaimed water is filtered and reused on the farm for drinking water for the cows, cleaning of the plant, and irrigation of crops. In an arid climate that receives only 15 inches of rain per year, 50,000 gallons of water reclaimed each day represents a large percentage of the dairy's water use. In the short term, the financial details of the changes Dannon and McCarty Farms have made in their supply chain raise the price of doing business. However, in the long term, being accountable to the customer will be the profitable position in a commodity business.
The real goal is, how do I do something that's positive and bigger than me, bigger than us? And I think this model gives you the springboard to doing some things like that.
I guess we're going to talk a little bit about our what we call the CPM, the cost performance model. It kind of summarizes our relationship with Dannon. I think there was a lot of skepticism about a direct supply relationship between a small farm in Kansas and a gigantic yogurt company based out of White Plains, New York, that it would be successful. I think it's surpassed everybody's expectations. That being said, it's always a work in progress. You know, we just had meetings with them this week. And, you know, it's by having a very open relationship, hey, there's things that we at times are dissatisfied with, and there's things that they're dissatisfied with. We've never had to go back one time and pull out the contract. Because I think that open line of communication or concern at times has just kind of torn down what we perceive to be the barriers in this relationship. For us, hey, it's been a game changer. We've been able to basically triple our business. It's brought stability to us. I think it's brought the stability to Dana that they've asked. And also it's given them the ability to come out directly to the farm and go, we would like you to do this. Will you do it? You know, that's really hard to do in a traditional milk market. We submit a budget annually, and that's actually why we were in Denver. We just submitted our budget for next year. It's definitely taught us to be much better businessmen. You know, we used to manage 30 days in the rearview mirror. You know, you waited for your milk check. Okay, can I pay my bills? I can pay him, won't pay him. We all have been there and done that. We're so consistent now, we can basically forecast for the year. You know, I looked at where we were for our 2018 budget the other day, and within a penny most months. We do a monthly cost review. That's gone from being usually it used to be a day and a half process to literally a 20 to 30 minute phone call. I spoke a little bit about the stable profit margin. For us, I think, you know, singles and doubles the rest of our life will get us in the Hall of Fame. You know, we were too often going for the home run out of desperation lots of times. And now, because we can consistently make money, we're able to invest in our facilities, invest in our people, invest in our cattle. And we've just seen performance. I believe when we started with Dannon, we were 72 pound dairy, and now we're close to, at times we hit almost 90 pounds across our farms. We collaborated obviously on the Dannon Pledge, the non-GMO piece. We're heavily involved in genomics now, and the big one is animal welfare. Like I talked about, they're giving me the clock. Trust, and more trust. I can't say enough about it. We've been able to, like right now, the Ohio Project's been an ongoing vision jointly shared with Dannon for probably 4 years. You know, they're the ones that pushed us to expand into the Ohio market. You know, quality control, traceability, and transparency, absolute must. I mean, Dannon, we used to say cow to cup, and as we've put more of a focus on the non-GMO piece, the saying is now dirt to cup. So we've needed some very, very good farmer partners to make that happen. But Dannon also stood behind the cost to make the transition. I mean, we had a lot of feed to sell, a lot. And 20 or 30,000 tons of corn silage in western Kansas is usually going to go out of bargain. So Dannon stood the cost of all that to help us make the transition. Third-party audits. Validus is obviously a big part of what we do. My brother Ken, who was on one of those videos earlier, he's really pushed that, and Dannon's kind of taken it and run with it. We do remote video monitoring. So all our farms have camera footage in basically cameras in every area of the farm, especially the critical areas, parlor, maternity. It's reviewed by a third party, and literally, we like to say it is by soccer moms because it's people that have no dairy experience. Because when I do read the reports, I'll be like, really? So you go back and you review the footage, and you know, a day-to-day dairyman would go, well, there's nothing there. But you know, what they perceive as cruelty or abuse, at least now we're forced to investigate everything that someone outside of us perceives as offensive. And I think if you asked our managers, it's been a great tool. I mean, one, it makes managing animal welfare so much easier. The goal has always been to take it live to Dannon. We've not quite decided we should do that just yet. It's just scary because you just said, what are people going to perceive, right? I guarantee a lot of us in this room would have a different concept of cruelty than, you know, the yogurt buyer in White Plains, New York. But we do get weekly reports that we do review. Securing non-GMO feedstuffs, I'll go back to that. So my brother gave the big breakdown of our diets. Well, I can assure you now that we're non-GMO, they are much, much simpler. There's really no other way to describe it. Basically right now we're feeding corn, bean meal, hay, molasses product, occasionally sunflowers, a little bit of wheat, and silage. That's basically what we can feed. There's just not a lot out there. For us, the challenge has been the protein piece. In western Kansas is a very difficult area to grow beans, so we've talked about putting in our own extruder and different things. What we've seen is that the perceived premium to buy a non-GMO product, it's going away. We offered a pretty healthy premium to get our farmers to convert. We're in the last year of basically a 3-year contract with a lot of them, and we've been way overpriced on grain and on silage specifically. And I think they realized and we realized that, hey, a lot of that was an unnecessary premium. Is there value to it? Hey, we don't farm a lot, but I farm enough to know that our costs have gone down as a non-GMO producer versus what we were running before as a true GMO producer. Is it a challenge? Oh, I mean, what we came to find out is 80% of our hay was already non-GMO. There was very little Roundup Ready hay grown in our area. There was way more corn. We thought corn was going to be this huge challenge. Well, there was so much non-GMO corn out there, people didn't even realize that it was non-GMO. They had no clue that they were growing it. And then you get talking to them, they're like, oh my God, I'm non-GMO. Oh my gosh, yeah, sell us your stuff. So has it been a challenge? Yeah. Not near what we perceived. I'm getting tight on time, aren't I? Cool.
Clay McCarty, a hand.
Your turn, man.
I'd like to open it up for questions. Does anyone have questions from the non-GMO or anything to do? Sir?
Yes, what do you use for testing on farm when you buy the feed on the GMO side?
I'll let David answer this. There's several different steps. A lot of our stuff is pre-certified coming in, but.
This one's good, right? All right. So the question was, how do we test the feeds coming onto the farms? For fermented forages, corn silage, haylage, everything is done beforehand. So the farmers will provide us with seed invoice, grower affidavit saying that they provided non-GMO feedstuffs, their planting records, what they planted, and basically a letter from the seed vendor saying that that product was in fact non-GMO that they used. Whole corn, we test every load that comes onto the facility through basically a strip test through the company Envirologics that will give you a cumulative percentage of what GMO is in that based on the proteins created with the genetic modification. Alfalfa, we can test each stand from each producer by field. So every year we will test our hay producers' fields for them under our certification with just a single strip test that tells us if it is Roundup Ready hay or not. Our soybean products, they all come in pre-certified along with our canola meal as well. So does that answer all your questions on that?
For the question.
Excuse me? As far as competition, as far as what, I guess? No, I wouldn't say. I mean, I guess I don't really understand what you're asking me. As far as competition regarding what we produce on the backside. So real simply, if you look at, so we take Dannon's milk supply. I think currently, when we get into Ohio, we'll be, and I'll probably get this wrong, somewhere between 12 and 15% of their overall milk supply. Now, we are basically the 100% supplier to their plant in Fort Worth. So basically, once it leaves us as condensed milk, it's neat. We can run around. If you see PLT 48, there's a 99.9% chance that is made with McCarty milk, which is kind of cool. But basically, once it leaves us, bye-bye. So that's probably a good problem to have. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Is it usual the fat content is 3.4?
Yeah, I mean, so you're talking on the raw milk side? Yeah, so I think component levels, fat, protein levels, a lot of them are diet-driven, breed-driven, environment-driven. So, I mean, we're definitely not on the high end of the component piece. We're not on the low end. Hey, do I think the biggest opportunity in our pricing relationship with Dannon is, hey, are they in the milk buying business? Sure. They're in the protein business, right? They're buying protein. So as our relationship's evolving with them, there's more of an emphasis on components. And that's why we're always pushing on our nutrition, whatever nutrition team, period. How do we get more? We're Holstein guys. The quick and easy way would be to convert to jerseys. That's just not in our blood, really. So for us, it's more of a, what we're excited about is one of the guys we buy some seed from is here today. You know, we're looking a lot at better seed selection, better testing, better ensiling process, better fermentation, improve our fermented crops. We think that's probably our biggest opportunity to increase component levels.
I'd add one thing to that. Those are October numbers, so we'd be coming right out of our summer slump on components.
Yeah.
Average across a year would be more around a 3.65 area as opposed to a 3.4. So we're still not hitting the 3.8 range like we'd like to be, but we're getting a lot closer.
Yeah, we are getting closer. Is that it? Wait. Yes, ma'am. So the question's relating to manure management. So I'd say it's different at all of our facilities. We compost some at our Bird City facility. We have a nutrient management plan obviously in place on all of our farms, and we do rely heavily on, we obviously export the vast majority of our manure. The last 2 years have made it more of a challenge, I think, just simply because it's been such a poor commodity market. You know, guys are pretty hesitant to spend the money to want to spread, so we've done a lot more of that internally. We move manure a lot further than I ever thought we'd move. But where we beat it, a lot of it, honestly, is we apply most of our liquid effluent goes out through our center pivot irrigation. And that's, when we looked at the design of the Ohio facility, we realized that manure would be our Achilles heel, so to speak, there. If we were going to fail or stub our toe, we'd stub it with a wreck in that area. So part of the reason I think the partnership's going to work so well with the Vandenberg family there is, hey, they bring a pretty big land base. So we bring the dairy knowledge, they bring the land and the feed, but they also have enough land that we can implement a lot of our center pivot practices in Ohio. And that's pretty rare, but I think that's a way, you know, instead of us having just truck after truck of slurry going down the road, hey, we're going to have very minimal. We're going to use separators. The goal at some point is a digester there. We're not quite sure how to make that work yet, but I know it's on both their radar, our radar, and Dannon's. So we use, I think, a pretty diverse approach on how we handle manure. And a lot of it's just honestly driven by, to your point, access to land. You know, who can you work with? Who wants to work with you? So it's a challenge, though. Yes?
What is your breeding program?
As far, so, like, you heard me talk about us being huge sex semen users. So, I mean, that's a big part of what we do. We've tried to forge what we call, Dannon calls it the Dannon Index. Lyle Cruz from Select Sires is really developing it for us. It's the McCarty Index, basically. Are we trying to breed the perfect yogurt cow? No, not really. You know, I think it's in the back of our mind, but what we're trying to do is just breed for a healthy, consistent animal. You know, high production, sure, that's a big part. Components, that's a big part. But health is a big deal for us. You know, I mean, we've just watched, as you know, you tighten down your toolbox. Hey, you don't want to be treating, you don't want to be trimming. How do you get that cow healthier? And, you know, now we just started genomics 3 years ago, I guess. And we haven't done near enough with it. There's going to be a renewed focus on that in the next 60 days. We want to have a really firm plan of how we're going to manage our growth moving forward. You know, if we're done growing dairies, we really need to slow down on growing heifers. So I think you'll see us look a little bit more at beef potentially. If someone would like to buy some non-GMO beef, I got a lot coming and no one's buying it. So I need some help in that area. But yeah, so I think we see opportunity. We don't always know how to get to it is the problem. But you know, one thing I give Select a lot of credit. Those guys have been good partners in what we've done and given us some really good advice. I can't believe I'm saying that with Lyle here, being as I'm stiff him on a hotel room tonight. But anyways, yeah, so if that answers your question, I don't know. Anybody else? Yes?
I haven't heard anything about the price of milk when it's GMO certified. What does that mean?
The price of milk, if it's non-GMO certified? So our conversion to non-GMO with Dannon has resulted in absolutely no increase in the premium for us. I mean, we kind of viewed it as, so we're in a cost-plus relationship, right? So if there's added cost to it, well, Dannon realized that. They pick up that cost. Our margin has stayed the same from the very first day in our contract to Dannon. I believe our contract is up for renewal in 2023, and we've never gone back and talked about our profit margin. You know, hey, if Dannon makes more profit on the backside, good for Dannon. You know, we're just trying to be consistent. So, do I think non-GMO has been profitable for them? I think it's working for them, or they wouldn't have asked us to be non-GMO from the get-go in Ohio. You know, and originally that wasn't the plan. So, I think on their side, yeah, maybe there's an increase in profit. But on the McCarty side, we're the same margin we were 2012. We're done. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.